So the spec that I've proposed is for something called out-of-place restores for Manila. If I to give a bit of a pretext, we've been looking at the share backup API for quite some time, since it was introduced in Bobcat, basically. Kind of like the reason that we are interested in this is that we want to implement our own backup driver for Manila that uses a service that we've developed internally called CBAC. I won't go into a lot of detail about it here, but there's a talk I can link, put these in the Etherpad after. There was a talk in the Dalmatian PTG where I sort of went over what CBAC is if you're interested. But sort of the main point is that basically when you do a restore with a share backup in Manila at the minute, you're only capable of targeting the source share, so the share that you basically created the backup from. Now, I've said here, why is that a problem? Is it a problem? For us, it's a little bit of a problem. There's a couple of reasons. So I've said here, share must be trimmed prior to restore. So if you imagine that you're basically doing a restore to your source share, and the size of the backup that you have, and the actual contents that you have on the share itself basically exceed the size of the share quota that you have, you're forced to basically restore destructively. What I mean by that is you basically have to destroy files that you already have on the share, and then do the restore. This is assuming that you have a backup driver that doesn't already do this. But yeah, you basically have to restore destructively. For us, we're a little bit opposed to that. I've written this other point, encourages users to browse by restore. And what I mean by that is that basically if you have to remove content from a share, there's no guarantee that a given backup will have the content that you're looking for, right? So kind of the best case scenario is you remove all of the data that you have in the share exists already, and then you perform a share backup restore on that target share. And if you find your files, you're great, you're golden. This is awesome, no problem. If you don't find them, it's okay. Maybe you have some other backups that you can restore from. The worst case scenario is that you don't actually have a backup that has the content that you're looking for, and you accidentally delete content that maybe would have been useful to keep, or something that you didn't realize you wanted to keep after the fact. So this is a little bit of a problem for us. It's kind of the final point I have is a backup is only usable if the source share storage backend stays available. So it kind of links into what I said originally. You can only restore to the source share, right? If the storage backend, let's say it's a CephFS cluster, for example, maybe to give some more context, for us at CERN, we operate quite a few different CephFS clusters. So they give like different storage types. You have ones that have different performance and things like this, basically. So maybe you have a different variety of shares. It's not all in the same cluster. But if your source share, or rather the storage backend that backs the share type for your source share, goes down, you lose the CephFS cluster in this example, you can no longer restore to it, right? The source share has to be available for you to be able to do a restore. If you can do an out-of-place restore, which is to say you can restore to a completely different share that has perhaps the same share protocol, so it could be CephFS, but that's backed by a different cluster, you don't encounter this problem. You have the option to restore and check the contents on a completely different share. You have the option to restore to a different cluster that maybe is still available. So for us, it's a BCDR problem. This is business continuity and disaster recovery. So if you imagine you lose a data center, you have some options in terms of recovering your services that are backed by CephFS. So what sort of progress have I made so far? This is something that we sort of talked about for a while, at least since Dalmatian, which I think was in like January, February, I think it was April of 2024. But I've actually sort of implemented, there's we'll talk about this maybe after you guys have a look at the spec, but there's some long-term improvements that I've sort of talked about and I've implemented them, but these are provider context arguments. So one of the things that happens with the backup, with the data manager in Manila, which is basically responsible for orchestrating share backups. Internally, it provides a context so that you can basically examine from the scope of what the user is doing or from the admin scope. And this isn't actually passed on to the backup driver through the share backup abstract class. So it's basically just adding this as an argument that can be passed so that drivers can use it. This Boolean self-use data manager, this is basically a Boolean that's already exists in the abstract class for backup drive, like the base abstract class for backup drivers, but it's not respected by this data manager. So if you want to use like a third party or develop a third party backup driver, you basically have to patch the data manager to respect this Boolean so that you can actually use your own backup driver. And then finally, you have adding get backup progress and get restore progress. So these are basically two calls that can be done periodically to just ascertain the status of either a share backup that you're doing, or a share backup restore that you're doing. This is something that it doesn't exist at the minute, but I've sort of added it. As far as actually out of place restore goes, I contributed a spec for this in Epoxy, but it didn't quite make it in. There was just some other constraints on my time. Now here, obviously, again for Flamingo. And I've been working on this kind of quietly in the background, basically on an implementation of the spec that you will see. And in my opinion, it works okay. Maybe you'll have some points to add, but yeah, I actually have a very short demo of this. So if I come out of the PowerPoint, you can see these terminals okay. It's not too small, not too big.
Yeah, seems okay to me.
Seems okay. Okay, just to sort of explain what you're looking at here. So I have on the right side of the window, you see two terminal sessions, and they're both on a DevStack instance. On the left, I have two that are, it's part of the CVAC service that I mentioned, and it's basically just running that so that you can actually do the backup operations of our driver. I'm not going to explore it in great detail. Just to mention as well, the DevStack instance is actually using a external CephFS cluster. So you can see here if I df, it's a little bit hard to read, but it's called CephFS DevStack. So it's just I'm not using the DevStack plugin CephFS, Ceph for this. It's an external cluster that's paired to the DevStack instance that I'm using. And this is just the root directory where the shares will end up. So, as well, in the top right, I have basically on the DevStack, it's just looking at the share data service. So you can see basically changes that are going to happen as I kind of talk through what I'm going to be doing. So if we consider what's in the share backup API in Bobcat, Dalmatian, and Epoxy now, I'll walk you through it. So you can create, for example, a CephFS share. We'll call it test1 in this case. So it exists. If I list this directory in the bottom left, you'll now see we have the share, right? I'm just going to get some content for it. It's just a HTML file in this case. We see there's something there. You can see there's some content that we can do a backup with. So now if I do OpenStack share backup, if I could spell, backup create, and it was test1. You see it creates a, oh, it's just restarting here. 1 second. Yeah, why didn't I see this here? This window is dead. 1 second, sorry. Just restart that very quickly. Okay, cback portal run. And then if I come over here and I do system control restart. take some time. It's already getting it. Okay. So as it exists in Manila right now, we can do OpenStack share backup list, sorry. You see, because it's restarting, give it 1 second. Yeah, still trying to get the backup. Sort of as a point, if you have any questions throughout this talk, feel free to stop me and ask. No problem at all. But let's just wait for this systemd unit to restart. It might take some time. What I'll do actually is I'll go back. Wait. There we go. Okay. So we see it's authenticated. Okay, so now if I do OpenStack share backup list, this is probably, no, it's creating. Okay, so if I go back to the journal control, you can see this. So we're in a state where we're basically creating a share backup in Manila from this test1 share that we created, has this index file. I'm just going to run, you don't need to worry about this so much. I'm just basically, on the CVAC side, there's something called an agent that does the actual backup progress, and you'll see it process. So you will see this. Manila is going to basically check that it's done. You'll see this is still going to be in creating state. And we'll see in the top left, there'll be a little request that will come through, and it will basically see on the CVAC side, the backup's done. Yeah, so it's came through. You see some changes up here. If I do this now, it's an error. Okay, fine. But we should see our backup. So let me just do that one more time. Create test1. So we see our backup come in, we see our gap. I'm going to run the backup agent one more time. Okay, backup is done. It's going to wait to pull it. Just give it the time. I think it's about 60 seconds is the poll interval. Yeah, so it's done. It's going to give this error again, but that's okay. Ooh, that's not what I'm trying to do. If I list, it's an error again. Okay, fine. So if we take the more recent one, this should still work. Basically, if I do OpenStack share backup set, we take the ID. No, it just came in there. If I list again, available. Right. Okay. So we have a good backup. If I on the CephFS now, I go into our share and I remove this index file. So we have no content in the share. We want to perform a restore, right? So I do OpenStack share backup restore, and then we're going to pass the ID. And to see the request come in on both sides, if I do CVAC restore agent, yeah, it's going to run, takes a little bit of time. And now when I actually look at the share, we have this restore content, it has our content. So this is how the share backup API kind of exists at the minute. You can do a restore to the source share, right? The spec that I've kind of proposed, if I now create another share, let's, for example, I'm going to call it test2 instead. So we should have another share now. Back. So we have two shares now. So we have test1, which is the original. And we have test2. Test2 is this D99. So if we go here, we don't have any content, right? And what the spec is basically proposing is a way that so that you can do a restore from a backup that was created from one source share and actually target a completely different share. As I said, it can be one that's backed by the same share type. It can be one that's backed by a different share type that has the same share protocol. for example. So the way this is kind of implemented, you pass your share as you would, but what I've added to Python Vanilla Client is this target share. It's an optional parameter, and you can pass a share. It can be the name of the share, or it can be the ID. So if I do target share equals test2, and this is just some debug so you can see one of the changes that I've made. So with a normal restore, you basically call on the Miller API share backups action, and then this is your the backup ID that you want to use. What's basically added in this is that you also add as part of the body of the call the target share that you want to restore to, and you can see it's just it's running on the portal, so it's looking for this restore. Manila's happy in the top left, top right as well. And if I run this restore agent again, which is actually responsible on our side in the driver for doing the restore, it's going to pick up the job and actually do it. And we give it some time, and it's okay. And now if we look here, you basically have this same folder. So it's the exact same backup that we created originally, but it's actually capable of being, as I said, targeted at a completely different location. So as I said, for us, this is a BCDR thing. If we want to recover a service or we want to check our backups, this is incredibly useful. I'll go back to the PowerPoint very quickly. Start from if I go to the right slide. So just sort of briefly to conclude on what I've talked about so far, we have some working features we would love to add, and this is out-of-place restore and some basically improvements on the share backup API in terms of making them usable by an external driver. I have some code and some tests ready for Gerrit for out-of-place restore. I haven't created a blueprint yet, and I haven't pushed it because I figure it's probably worth getting everybody's feedback on the spec itself first. And then clearly we can iterate and improve as needed. And likewise also for the share backup improvements. So for this context and for the get restore and get backup progress, I have code and tests ready for Gerrit. This can go in on its own, or it can go in with out-of-place restore, or it can go in as its own blueprint, as you prefer. But clearly, this is something that I can't do without your feedback and expertise, because I've made this work for us. And clearly, this should be something that works for everybody who wants to use it in Manila. Maybe there's stuff that I haven't thought about. Maybe there's test cases that I haven't thought about. Lots of stuff like this, basically. And yeah, it's basically just to show off what this could be. I have the time and energy to basically work on this within this release cycle. So yeah, looking forward to it. If you have any questions, we can go through the spec. Maybe you can ask me as you like. So yeah, thanks very much. And I will stop sharing my screen, Carlos. Maybe I don't know if you want to go back to yours.
That was awesome. Thank you, Zach.
No worries.
Really great. And brave to do the live demo. That's awesome.
Yeah, sure.
Really nice to see this working. So thanks for sharing it. Yeah, any questions from the audience?
I guess a couple of things. So I was looking at the spec. I have a few things. I think the most major feedback, if anything, would be, it seems like a two-step process to do the restore. You would have to create the share as an end user, and then you would have to tell Manila to restore into that share.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I think Cinder has the concept of a one-step restore, right? It would just do the volume creation.
Yeah. So if you look at the actual, like the original share backup spec, one of the things it kind of calls for, I think, is you can basically there's a flag that you could pass, and it would create a new share for you as you do the restore, basically. Okay. This is also an option, right? But for us, I think in Cinder, when you do this, I think it's actually tied to the share type that you're using originally. I'd have to check this, but I think we tested this in the past, and it uses the share type that you basically already have. To me, there's a bit of a benefit in that. Okay, maybe it's an extra step in that the user actually has to create the share before they can actually restore to it. But then you gain this thing I was talking about of being able to target maybe a different share type, for example. I'm using the example of CephFS because it's what I've been working with. But you could have one cluster that's using one share type, another cluster that's another share type, and you would be able to still perform the restore, for example.
Yeah, totally. And that kind of makes sense. My thought was basically around how we could extend this. And you're right, like
Sure.
this could be done in small parts, right? One is if you did support something like that, which is creating a new share, it would initially just be the source share type that you had.
Sure.
So
Yeah, sure.
you know the backup, you know the source share, you know the source share type. So you just fill in all that data and then you schedule that share somewhere, and then you would do the restore process. Um, Seems doable, and I feel like it would be useful. But the right backend, and then we do the restore accordingly, and so on. So just thought that was a thing, but otherwise, I think your specs really well written. I didn't see a whole lot of things that we should probably change or something. And it's very well thought of, and I like that you did the demo, and you can tell it's going to work the way you've written it down in the spec. Sorry if you're hearing some background noise. I just have an impatient puppy here.
It's okay.
And I think one other thing I think Carlos just pinged me about it as well was when you were doing the demo. It looks like we had a get backup progress thread
Yes.
that just kicked off and then set the backup in error.
This
And
is to
then
do with this is on my side. Yeah.
I'm not sure it's on your side. I feel like we have this absolute timer that kicks off when the backup gets created.
Okay.
And the backup progress is probably setting that to error, saying, "Oh, I don't have anything going on right now." It's possible that CBAC is telling it that the share doesn't exist yet, or
Yeah.
the restore doesn't exist yet, or something like that. But we've actually handled that case with something like replication before. And the way
Okay.
we did that was we have two status fields, one that tells you whether the container is all right, and the other that tells you whether the data is all right.
Okay.
So with replicas, we have a status and we have a replica state. And the replica state will tell you whether the data is in sync or out of sync with its primary source and so on. Whereas the status is telling you, what Manila cares about, like, the management path. Has this gone to error? Do you need administrator intervention to kind of, you know, revive that container kind
Sure.
of?
Yeah. When it goes
Uh,
error backup or whatever. I
so
can't remember the
if
constant.
anything, it looks
Right.
like your demo actually shows that this could possibly use a similar update. um, it might be useful because what really happened over there was that your backup was going on, but the data wasn't there yet. So the state is not really error. It's not something the user should panic about. It's
Yeah.
almost as good as, oh yeah, I'm still creating the backup. Uh,
Exactly. Yeah.
yeah. Um, but that's again orthogonal to your implementation, I think. So it can come as a bug, perhaps, if you want to call it that. Um, Yeah, I didn't have any other feedback. I already commented on your spec, and I'll look forward to, like, re-reviewing it if you had updates. You
Sure.
are targeting the Flamingo cycle, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah. This is the idea anyway.
awesome, awesome.
Awesome. I don't have any other feedback as well. And yeah, as Gautam said, I was looking at the status being set to error and then it being recovered to available.
Yeah.
And yeah, that mechanism of that we have on the share replicas, like it can be really helpful. Instead of only having one status, we can have one status and one state, and then the state will be like the state of the backup, or like if it's yet being created or stuff like that. And the status can be like representing if it's an error, if it's available. It's when I saw it, I was like, yeah, it's not very common for us to do that kind of recovery, and there aren't lots of places that you see in Manila that will automatically recover. So I was like, yeah, are we doing that? And then we realized, like it's likely some routine that we have. So it's not related to this though, as Gautam said, and I agree this can be a separate bug. So yeah, all good. And it looks really awesome, and I was really happy to see. I'm really happy to see the demo and it working. It's fantastic. It's a lot of work, I know, too, that you have put on this. So thanks for that, and thanks for bringing it up as well.
No problem at all.
Any other questions, suggestions, feedback?
I think you had a question on this.
Basically, the reason I wrote that originally is because when you try and get the progress of a restore that's underway, this periodic task that we were just discussing, as I understood it originally, it was actually fetching basically based off of the source the ID of the backup's source share. What I wanted to basically do was add a field that you could basically see, this share was last restored to, this share is being restored to from this backup or from this source share. But if you look at the way it's actually done, the way it filters, maybe I can show it here. If I get up my screen very quickly and I start sharing my screen, Carlos. There's a field called, I think it's last restored. Screen 2, open start, share, show, test 1. Where is it? Source backup ID, sorry. This is the one that I'm talking about. Basically, I needed a way to, I think if you go to here, data manager.py, and then if you go to continue restore, I think it's called restore continue. No? Okay, let's just have a look for it. Yes, yeah. So you create restore. No, it's not continue. Is it further up? Create backup. And it's further down.
Restore backup.
You have restore backup, but there's also, I can actually search for it by, if I go down, it's this periodic one.
The restore backup continue.
Restore backup continue. This is the guy. So one of the problems that you basically have, and the reason that I put this field in, basically talking about ManilaDB, was I was concerned that you didn't have a way when you're trying to check from a periodic task whether a restore is still going, because it's out of it's not done from within the actual restore call, right? It's out of plane, let's say. And I was concerned that you didn't have a way to basically map when you're doing a targeted restore the share that you're actually targeting, basically. But it's not actually a concern, because it basically, the way that you determine which share that you're working with is using this source backup ID. and the fact that it's actually restoring. So long story short, it's not something that we have to worry about, basically.
Nice. Yeah, that should help. I think I called that out in the comment as well. The other thing is, do you have any questions around the testing aspect and stuff?
I think yeah, definitely.
Okay. Anything right
So
now, or do you want to discuss it on Gerrit?
it might be better to do it on Gerrit, because there's still, so there's some more testing. I have some testing basically done for Python vanilla client. Maybe you will ask me to add some more. I've added, there wasn't basically for the restore, there wasn't functional testing for a share backup restore call. So I've added for that, and I've also added for like the case of doing a targeted restore with some unit testing as well. But maybe there's some other stuff that you want me to add. One of the things
that the concern would be, I mean, thank you for that, because I think one of the things we did find is those functional tests in Manila client actually do catch bugs once in a while.
Yeah,
but the ones that actually help a lot more would be the Tempest tests. And I think Kiran added backup tests that you could extend.
In Manila, yeah. But I think there's quite a few in Python Manila client at least. But just for the case of restore, I think maybe this was missed. Yeah. So one question that I do have, maybe this is more of a question for Ashley actually, is Python, sorry, is in the actual, when you're using the OpenStack client, you also have this Manila client as well. Is this going away? I understood this is the case, but I wasn't sure if I needed to add testing as well for that. Basically.
We haven't been adding, so when it comes to new commands, we haven't been adding them to Manila client. We've been adding them almost exclusively to the OSC, to the OpenStack client. I think we have a talk, I don't know if it's today or tomorrow, where we discuss deprecating or steps to deprecate the Manila clients.
Okay.
Yeah, it's, we have the topic for that on today, but yeah, that's pretty much what Ashley said.
Sure. Okay. Good to know.
Yeah, in terms of historic context, I think it was motivated mostly by you guys, that you had to tell all of your physicists to install a different client to talk to Manila.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
I mean, you still have to install a Python Manila client, but they don't have to use the Manila CLI. They could just use the OpenStack CLI from now on. Yep. So we're actively telling folks not to add anything new.
Okay.
Because that discussion in a little bit, we're going to talk about deleting that client in the upcoming release.
So yeah, as far as testing goes, what I'll do is I'll look at the comments that you've put on the spec. I'll try and address them, and then maybe once it gets written off, like I said, I have the stuff waiting, so I'll push blueprints to Gerrit. We can discuss maybe how you want me to do that. If you want it, clearly the Python Manila client and the Manila stuff has to be separate. But whether you want the other extensions that I've added to the share backup API, we can discuss this maybe another time, whether you want them to come with out of place restore or if you want them to be separate. So yeah, thanks very much.
Awesome. Thank you, Zach. That was great. Yeah, I think I don't know if other people have any other questions or something to bring up, but as I said, it's awesome. Yeah, pretty great. Thank you for that. The next thing we had in the agenda is actually the other bits of it. And you mentioned that in your presentation, which are the usage of the or the use data manager Boolean.
Sure.
The context the context for the driver calls, and also the get and restore get progress for restore, and the backup itself. So yeah, I think it's covered. But is there something else you would like to add to those?
Not from me personally. I think if people have understood it from sort of the talk that I gave, I think it's okay. But maybe other people have questions. Why I'm interested in adding these things. I'm happy to answer any of them.
Well, a basic code organization question, I think. So this was an older change, and
Absolutely, yeah, yeah.
let me just open the shared document again, and just link it through that. So it's this one, right? 907983.
Let me just have a look. So this is one of them. I think I at the time when I was like looking at this originally, I only pushed the Boolean one. Get progress, get restore progress, and get backup progress, and the get context changed. They weren't actually included. Maybe I have a blueprint for them, but I think maybe the better way to do this is I open a new blueprint that basically explains them in better detail, and we do it perhaps all together.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So this was quite some time ago. I think this was Dalmatian, right? So
yeah,
2024.
Cool. Yeah. Awesome. That's a good update as well on this. Thanks, Zach.
No problem.
Right. Any other questions? Going once. Right. So I believe we can, we can wrap this discussion up then. We've covered the two of them. I try to do my best on taking the notes on the two discussions for them. But yeah, thanks for putting up the slides and the demonstration. It was really great. And also for joining us. Always nice to have you joining us. Right.
Likewise. Thanks again for having us.
Thank you. Okay, so I think we can take like a 5-minute break before we go to the next topic. And then we have a couple of tech items for today. So how does, Gotham just reminded me, team picture. Let's take a team picture while everyone's here. So I'll stop the recording for now.